Hi, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Kim Becker here with Hello Gorgeous. I thought today, given the new year, I wanted to bring all things hair color to you. Sometimes a new year invokes a new change. I know people set goals. It's fitness goals and weight loss goals and maybe some new you goals. And so I thought I would talk a little bit about hair color, the differences of hair color, how long hair color lasts, what the maintenance look like with the different types of hair color. So that way, then if it was something that you wanted, if you wanted to do some sort of a change, you could go in and talk to your stylist about it, but you were a little bit more educated with it. I feel like knowledge is power. And if you go in with a plan, or you go in where you've got good questions or good information, then you can educate your stylist, which means that if the stylist is educated, they can better, they have a better plan and they know what you're thinking. I always told my new stylists when they came on board that you have to be a detective, right? You have to sleuth a little bit, because what your client or salon guest is describing and how I'm interpreting what they're describing, it may not be the same thing. So pictures are amazing to be able to, take into your stylist as to what you're looking for, especially where color goes, because my idea of a brown and your idea of a brown may be two different things. My idea of a red or a blonde may be different than what the interpretation of the stylist is going to be, red or blonde. And that's where I feel like I got into trouble the most as a stylist, was when we weren't on the same page as how blonde they wanted it or how vibrant red they wanted it. And so I always ask, bring me a picture. And even if it's a picture of what your hair used to look like years ago, then I can see, yep, that's the blonde that you used to be. And now we have to take into account that was really dark back then, but now you've got a lot more gray in there. Or, your color changes. And so maybe you were a dark brown, but it's lightened up now naturally as you've gotten older, and it's a little bit more of a dishwater blonde, so I don't have to go as light with it. Or there's things that I need to do in order to be able to get that as a stylist. But I feel like going in with a plan and being able to discuss with your stylist exactly what you're thinking and take some pictures in is really, really, really helpful. But I also wanted to make sure that you were educated on the different types of color. The one thing that I loved about being a stylist was the transformation that could take place in, 45 minutes or an hour and a half was absolutely incredible. Like no other job in the world can you make somebody feel and look different than you can as a hairdresser, right? You go in, Mike always used to say that you would go in kind of a tired, overworked CEO or an overworked housewife or a mother, a very tired mother, and just the difference that a hair color and a good haircut could do, how all of a sudden her shoulders were back and, she was standing a little straighter and her smile was just huge. And that was a transformation that could take place in 45 minutes, maybe an hour. But, the other thing is too, I want to encourage you, I included, set weight loss goals. And it takes time. It takes time to hit my goal. You can't lose, healthily, you shouldn't lose more than a couple of pounds a week. So, it takes you maybe a month or two in order to see the effects of your labor, right? Where if you want to change your hair color and you want a difference, some sort of a transformation, like in an hour and a half, 2 hours, you can have a completely different, if you need a change, that is a change that you can do right now. You can't grow your hair long, but you can cut your hair short. You can, if you're blonde, you could go red. If you're red, you could go blonde. Like you can do some massive changes and get some massive change with just the difference in your haircut, if that's what you need. And that will help propel you in order to be able to get you where you want to be. I really think that will help, especially if you need a change and you want something that's right now a change. Doing something with your hair is the best way to be able to go. So I wanted to kind of talk to you about the different types of color and the maintenance that you're looking at when you actually get that color done. And these are conversations that we have with our gorgeous women all the time because of the fact that they, some of them maybe are coming out of treatment. Their hair's not the same as what it was prior to their treatment. It's all new hair. Maybe they want the old hair that they had prior to going through their chemotherapy, but maybe it's like, I'm a completely different person and I want to have fun now. I tried a red wig. I want to have red hair. So when they're going into this, I like to have this conversation with them as well, so that they know what they're looking into. So let's say that before they went through their treatment, their hair was dark brown, and they didn't have to have color. They didn't have to do anything because there wasn't any gray. Now, all of a sudden, their hair's grown back in and it's salt and pepper, and they want that dark color again. They want to go back to where they were prior to their treatment, which is great. But now with salt and pepper, there's going to be some maintenance there. So I like to have these conversations with them to let them know, all right, these are the options that we can do. And along with the options that we're doing, here is the maintenance that you're looking at as you're going forward. Because what you don't want to do is get into if you're a dark brown and you want this high lift blonde, right? So Trisha, my sister, if anybody has ever met her, I bleach her hair, and her hair is really, really, really dark. So if you're looking at a scale, 1 is the darkest, 10 is the lightest. So she's probably about a level 5, but I take her up clear past a 10. So the contrast between a 5 and a 10 is quite stark. So, she gets a little bit, a quarter of an inch of new growth. So think about black on white. So the new growth is really dark, and then the ends are really light. So luckily we can, touch her hair up, and that's not a big deal. But if she were a paying client, that may be something that she would have to invest in every 3 or 4 weeks. So I'm all about doing it. I just want to make sure that as a salon guest, when you're going into it, you understand what you're looking at as far as maintenance goes, because it looks really great, but you can't let that go 6 to 8 weeks without doing something with it, because it's not going to look so good. So I thought if I came to you today and just kind of explained the difference of the different colors that are there and what you're looking at as far as maintenance goes, it may help you make a more educated decision. So we'll start with that. So the first thing that I want to talk to you about is that when you go into your stylist, I want you to, there's a great way that you can tell them exactly what you're looking for. So I learned this years ago, and that is you can tell them if you want your hair to whisper, talk, or shout. Right? So if you want your hair to whisper, say you just want a whisper of a difference, right? It's a very subtle change, probably something that nobody would even notice. If you want your hair to talk, that's something where people are going to look at you and go, hey, you did something different. What is it? Is it your hair? Is it your eye makeup? But they notice that there's a change. It's more than a whisper, right? But it's not anything that's like earth shattering. It's like, hey, I can see that you did something different. What is that? Or if you want that baby to shout, you want people stopping you on the street and saying, that is awesome hair, and look at that wild color and how vibrant that is, then they know that you're really looking for something that's going to actually be, that you want that to shout. Like, you want people stopping you on the street asking you where you got your hair done, and it's certainly not your natural color, but that it's awesome. So if you go in and you talk to your stylist and you use the whisper, talk, or shout, they have a better, because everybody understands a whisper is really quiet, talk is normal, except if you're Kim Becker, because I talk really loud. But then there's the whole shout thing, right? That I want my hair to shout. I want my hair to scream that I wanted something different. So that's a great way to go in and kind of to introduce your stylist is I want a new color, and this is what I'm thinking. So that they'll know too, they'll understand whether it's, maintenance wise, what are you looking at? Are you looking something if you want it to shout, then just understand that more than likely there's going to be a little bit more maintenance involved in that. If you want it to whisper and your change is really subtle, then it may not be that, it might not be that much of a difference. So let's talk about the different types of colors. So we're going to start at the bottom, which is the less invasive of all the colors. And that's a semi-permanent color. It can also be a demi-permanent color. But a semi-permanent color is more of like a stain that goes on your hair. So let's think about this. If many of you are my age, and back in the day we wore pantyhose, right? So if you were to take a pair of pantyhose and you put it over your hand, you can still see your hand through the pantyhose, but the pantyhose was covering your hand, right? That's what a semi-permanent does. You can still see your hair through this semi-permanent color, but it kind of glosses it and it just covers it. And it actually lays on top of your hair. There's not a lot of peroxide in it, so the cuticle of the hair doesn't open, so it just lays on top of it. Now, what's really nice about that is many semi-permanent colors will add a lot of shine because they actually close that cuticle down, so you get that nice, bright, shiny color. But also it's very low maintenance because it grows out. I'm wrong. It washes off. So after about 6 weeks, the color just kind of disappears. So you don't have a line of demarcation with that. It just fades away. And with that too, you can still change the color. Now you can't lighten the color. So if you're dark brown and you want to go blonde, a semi-permanent color is not going to get that because there's no lifting action at all. It's just, you can either go the same color and enhance the color that you already have, or you can go a little darker with your color too. If you're, say like a level 7, which is a darker blonde, and you wanted to go a little darker for fall and winter, and take that down to like a chestnut brown, that's something that you could do. And that will just slowly fade off. And the nice thing about a semi-permanent color is if you want to do it again, you can do it again. But if you try it, if you dip your toe in the water of color and you're with the semi-permanent and you're like, yeah, I really don't want that maintenance, I don't want to do that again, you don't have to do it again. It just will slowly rinse off. It fades out, and then you're done. You don't have to do that again. So the second one is a permanent hair color then. So permanent hair color is where there is peroxide involved. There is a lifting. There's you use a color and a developer with that. There is a lifting process that's there, or you can just deposit it, but it becomes more a permanent part of the hair. So that cuticle of the hair actually opens up and the color is deposited into your cuticle. And then the last 10 minutes of the action of the color, then that closes that back down so that it stays within there. Now, the color, depending on the color line that's being used, that color can fade, but it does remain a permanent part of the hair. So with that, there is going to be some maintenance because it's not your natural color. So I'm going to use myself as an example because in case many of you didn't realize this is not my natural hair color at all. When I was younger, my hair was quite dark. And so I turned my hair red, but actually it's been quite of a darker red. But what's happened is as I've aged, believe it or not, I am getting gray hair. And so because my red was so dark and my white was so white, that as soon as I got a little bit of a line of demarcation, as soon as my hair would start to grow out, you would see that white. There was such a contrast between my dark red and my natural color. And so we decided that Trisha and I, we wanted to see if we could go and make it that it was a little lighter. So by doing a lighter red on my new growth, and then actually I throw some highlights in it to lighten it even more and to enhance it, when my gray comes in, because my gray is so light, my line of demarcation isn't so stark. So you really have to think about that. Same as the conversation that I had earlier about Trisha's color, when she's so light and her new growth is so dark that when that grows back in, you're definitely going to be able to see that line of demarcation. You're going to see what that looks like as it grows out. So again, this is a maintenance issue. Now, if you're simply doing gray coverage and you just want to keep it closer to your natural color, you're still going to there's going to be an upkeep with it, but you might be able to go like every 6 weeks just to touch up the new growth. If you want to do the new growth and throw some highlights in there, I always like to recommend that, and I did that for my clients. Not only I don't like a monochromatic color. Like I like something with a lot of different pieces of color in there because I feel like that line of demarcation isn't quite so stark when there's a lot of color in there, right? If you're just going with all over one color, you can't not help but see that new growth color when it comes in because of the fact that it's just one color. So if you go through and you add a few highlights in there, it breaks that line up. I guess that's a better way to be able to say that. It breaks that line up so that when it grows in, it's not nearly so stark. But again, permanent hair color does become a permanent part of the hair, and it closes that cuticle down. You can grow it out. It's not anything that you're left with forever. There's a way to transition out of permanent color if you decide that you don't like it. But the variety of colors that are available in permanent hair color, it's endless. You can go dark, you can go black, you can go a dark red, you can go a light red, you can go blonde, you can go a brown, like whatever shade of color that you want. If you're going with a permanent color, the sky's the limit. Because the way that we as technicians, as stylists, mix and match that color, truly the possibilities are endless. I very rarely did the same formula on every client. Like there was always a formula for a red, and I would tweak it to personalize it with them because they're things that as a stylist, as we're doing it, you have to take into account like how much gray do they have, and how dark are they, and how light do they want to go. And so then there's a certain developer that you have to, there's a whole training, there's a whole education around it. Because I worked for a hair color line, an Italian hair color line for years, and actually would go into salons and train them how to use it. And what I loved about that color line was that they used a lot of pure pigment. So it was that if I wanted a red, it was just a red. But if I wanted a red brown, I had to mix the brown in there in order to make that red brown. And so I loved being able to have that. And I felt like I was able to give that to my clients, and better serve them because of the fact that the palette was so big that I could really individualize the color and the color formulas that I was using because of what I was doing. But permanent hair color gives you that option. Permanent hair color gives you the rainbow and this wide array of all of these colors, and by going in and allowing your stylist to use permanent hair color, then they actually have the opportunity to better serve you and individualize exactly what it is that you're looking. So right now we've got the first two, which is semi-permanent, which washes out after 6 weeks. It's very it's just an easy way to kind of dip your toe in the water of color if that's what you want to do. And then there's permanent hair color, which becomes a permanent part of the hair, which is that's what I have. And so it just depends on what it is. And with my color right now, and I'm lucky because I can do my hair myself if I don't have somebody around to do it. So I touch my own hair up about every 3 weeks, and every other color that I touch it up, then Trisha does it for me. And she'll just touch up my color and throw in a few highlights. And I have attempted to highlight it myself, but I am a trained professional. So I do not recommend that you do any of this at home. As you've noticed throughout this whole Facebook Live, I've said, make sure that you see your stylist. Take pictures into your stylist. Have a conversation with your stylist. Do the whisper, talk, or shout thing. Do not try any of this at home, because let me tell you, the amount of money that I made on color correction is incredible. Absolutely incredible. What people don't understand is that a lot of the hair colors that are over the counter that you buy at some of your drugstores, they've got metallic dyes in them. And the metallic dyes can damage your hair and melt your hair. And what we have to do to undo what you've done at home is going to be far more expensive than what you're doing if you were to just come in the first time and have us do this. So anyway, visit your stylist, take pictures. So semi-permanent and permanent. The third one is highlights. So highlights can be done an array of ways. People will use cellophane, they can use foil, they can use papers. The old-fashioned way to be able to do a highlight is through a cap, which is not fun. It's painful. I have done it. It's not my favorite. I like to be able to use foils or paper because I can place the color exactly where I want it. I always felt like, years ago with typing, they called it the Hunt and Peck method. Before you did the whole 5-finger thing or 10 fingers when you were typing. So the Hunt and Peck method that's there, I feel like when you pull it through a cap, it's much the same way. It's kind of the Hunt and Peck method. And so with a foil and using papers, I could strategically place the color where I wanted it to be. So I could enhance and have a lot of blonde if I wanted it. I could, add dark in there. So that's what I loved about being able to do a highlight, was the multi-dimensional. It's not, a highlight isn't just, you can do highlights and lowlights, which I did a lot. So I would do, several different colors of blonde, and then I could do several different colors of dark, so that when it meshed back together, it just gave this beautiful, very natural look, but maybe some stronger blonde pieces are in there. So again, when you're going in and talking to your stylist, it's a whisper, talk, or shout thing, which can be used with highlights as well. If you want more of a natural look, the more colors that they use, the more natural it would be. But if you wanted a bolder look, then they could use several colors that are bold and really make that stand out. Now, again, when you're highlighting, if you are highlighting, that's going to actually remove the pigment from your hair. So that is going to be permanent, and you will have a line of demarcation. So with highlights, if you do a highlight and a low light, you may only have to have that done every 8 to 12 weeks because of the way that the blending process takes place. So again, just so you know exactly what you're looking at, and as far as a maintenance part of it goes as well. So I mix and match my permanent color with the highlights. I don't necessarily do semi-permanent and highlights because as it fades off, it can fade off onto the highlights and it can change the color of the highlights. But knowing that the semi-permanent color was only temporary and that the permanents are, the highlights are permanent, I never really mixed and matched that. But a lot of my work that I did when I was behind the chair, it married a permanent hair color with some highlights to get the actual effect that I wanted to be able to look for. So those are my tips today. When you go in and talk to your stylist, make sure you do whisper, talk, or shout. Let them know, this is what I want my hair to do. And that the colors that you've got, the choices that you have are semi-permanent, a permanent, and then there are highlights. So every stylist understands that. And my biggest recommendation for you is take pictures so that you can show them. And again, just like I said, even if it's pictures of the way that your hair used to look, especially if you happen to be going through treatment or coming out of treatment, or maybe it's something that you liked the way your hair looked on a wedding day. Whatever those pictures are, if you can take a picture of yourself, I think that was one of the other, difficult things, right? People will take a picture of a model and the hair looks like the model, but the face doesn't look like the model. And so people are like, well, this doesn't look anything like, right. It doesn't look like the picture. The hair looks like the picture, but the face doesn't look like the picture. So I would recommend a lot of times if you found a picture, an old picture of yourself, and that you can take that in, that's a big help as well. Or know that if you take a picture in, that it may not look, the hair may look exactly like you want it to, but the face may not look like the model's face. So be aware of that when you're going in as well. But and I think it's okay too to take several pictures in. I even when I was doing haircuts, I would say, bring me the front, the picture of something of a front that you like, and the back of another cut, or the sides, maybe you like the top and the sides. And as a trained stylist, then it was my job to make sure that I could figure out how to make all of that work together. So, and I could tell you, if we cut the top that short and leave the sides that long, you're going to look like you have a mullet. Now, if a mullet is what you want, I'm in. I can do that. But if a mullet is not what you want, then that's not what we're going to do. So pictures are a huge thing. So remember, whisper, talk, or shout, and you've got your options: semi-permanent, permanent, and your highlights. So I wish you luck. We would love to see your before and after pictures if you have them. If you have any questions for us, type them in the chat. And Happy New Year. Good luck with your new look. And I hope that all of the challenges and the obstacles that you received in 2020, as we all have, actually are seeds for all the good things that are to come for you in 2021. So Happy New Year. We'll see you next year.